Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is looking at people who have their Black Moon Lilith in the first house. And one day I may do these all over again when I have really absorbed what this represents. I'm still learning about it. And I have in the past thought about doing it. I think somebody asked me if I could do it, but I really couldn't find much information that really made sense to me. I still feel like there's a lot of contradictory ideas about Lilith and what she represents astrologically. What I get from it is kind of the seductress and the shadow self. So it's kind of like a combination of Venus and Mars and Pluto, in the sense of the shadow being Pluto and very much about the part of a person that they're not willing to look at. So in the first house, and by the way, I want to give a shout out to this one site because it's actually, I looked at multiple sites and this one to me had the most information that really resonated with me, but just information altogether. And it's called geocult.org. I think I've, seen stuff by them before that is connected to astrology. But anyway, I don't typically go to this site. But anyway, they mention that having Lilith in the first house can have to do with karma that has to do with violence in past lifetimes. Now, in a past life. And I really don't know exactly why karma is attached to Lilith. I do know that the first house is connected to Aries, and so that could have something to do with violence because Mars is the ruler of that house. But in any case, this can result as bullying, being picked on. And I just did a video on different indicators in the chart of being a scapegoat, being bullied, being shunned by others. So you can find that on my channel if you're interested in that. But I didn't mention too much about the first house, and I do feel that because I should have mentioned Chiron in the first, and I'm not sure that I did that. But I guess Lilith in the first can also result in this. Now, there's also the forbidden fruit and the sexual aspect of the first house. And I saw in other sites that there was this this aspect of I think somebody was commenting on another article that I had read about Lilith in the first and said that men always wanted to have sex with her. So I don't know if she meant from the time that she was very young or what. But this can be, they said on another site that I looked at called advancedastrology.com that the person may have been a victim of abuse when they were young. Now, I am wondering why they're not just coming out and saying that there might have been sexual abuse, because if Lilith is a seductress, and at least that is part of what it represents, it can be like a woman who is in charge of her own destiny and not willing to submit to somebody else too. But that other kind of side to it that, is all about sensuality or sexuality, then in the first house, because the body is the first house, then you can have a child. And I'm saying a woman, I'm saying a girl because, that's typically what it's going to be. But of course, both genders could be in play here. of being, of having this unwanted attention on them. And yet, at the same time, they may have felt unwanted. So the first house is about the beginning of a new cycle, including the new life cycle. So it really can deal with childhood, especially those early years, and it sets the stage, for what the childhood is like. Even if the conditions improve, if they start out really badly and they improve, there still is that, residual effect. And on advancedastrology.com, they mentioned that this position is can be somewhat Plutonian. Now, I don't know why. I'm thinking it's because it resembles the scorpionic demeanor. Because why wouldn't it be Plutonian in all houses? But it's especially because the first house can be the appearance, the mannerisms, the outward way that the person expresses themselves. This can lead to body issues with a person, but again, sometimes something like sexual abuse can trigger body issues as well. Sometimes anorexia is trying to remove the sexual development, which has attracted attention. Now, there's the lower expression, the higher expression, and they mention the higher expression is that sense of independence, that power that the person owns. But the thing about it is, I think that sometimes, even with the higher expression, the person may still be challenged. And of course, we have to look at other factors. What is the sun sign? What is the rising sign? All of that, to get a feel for some of the that sense of dynamics that's taking place in that person's life and what they're reacting to. And what they mentioned is that other people may perceive you as selfish. And they suggest that that's like a projection, that they are seeing it that way because, let's face it, sometimes people, when you don't do what they want you to do, then they have to resort to you could say it's a manipulation or just shaming. Before I continue, I just want to say that when I look at different sites to speak on the themes that they talk about, I'm putting in my own words. So sometimes I may say something that might not be what the author intended. So you have to realize that. But I still want to give credit to the sites that I have visited regarding this issue. So I thank those sites. And I think that, like, when you're young, you may feel this sense of being shy, being stepped on, and maybe having problems asserting your power. And then obviously you work through that shadow self of feeling disempowered in some way. But in some cases, there can be people who are way too aggressive and they don't understand that they are making problems for themselves. So the female who has this and is heterosexual, she has to be able to balance that aggressive tendency, because especially with women, I don't know about the younger generation, they don't have as much to rebel against compared to past generations. But we'll just say, like, older women may have grown up with a great sense of anger because they felt that they were subjugated in some way. And that might have been taken out on partners and so on and so forth. But for everybody, the people that are operating at the most unconscious level can be like that Aries type of the brusque. I mean, they mention rudeness and that anger that's very provocative and in riling up other people to become aggressive, you know. That kind of thing is the lower expression. And being very headstrong and not willing to, you know, being uncooperative. That I'm not sure if they're talking about the first house or just the black moon in general, because here's a sentence I'll just read verbatim from geoccult.org. The unworked black moon inclines to self-destruction, to experience the integrity of the physical and mental shell through walking over an abyss, jumping from great heights, provoking fights and occultism. A craving for witchcraft awakens, communication with otherworldly forces as a rule to make an impression. These people are their own enemies, and karmic task is to save their souls by controlling destructive energy. And we can see this too with planets in the first house in general that are that have hard aspects and have a tendency to work against the self. I'm still trying to figure out what karma has to do with Lilith, or if this is something to do with the first house, because usually karma is associated with the 12th house. So they mention that it's important to kind of restrain the sexual energy and kind of channel it into art or other creative pursuits, and to be like a partner to somebody in a marriage, or we would call the equivalent of that, in a way that, you know, kind of serves that other person, I would say unselfishly. Yeah, they use the word unselfish. So you're not giving to get with a marriage partner or, you know, committed partnership. And they said that will help to, you know, take care of that karma or lessen it. Okay. So, and by the way, I don't want to suggest that karma is like punishment. I think what they mean is that the unfinished business, or the continuation of all of the stuff that you just bring from another lifetime, the baggage, it just keeps playing itself out. And that to me is what karma is. And if you really want to eradicate it, you have to kind of counter it and not just keep, you know, with that same unconscious behavioral patterns. You have to be very conscious in your actions. And there may be this tendency in the first house. And I would say if your ascendant is Scorpio, and if you have, or even Libra, strangely enough, because of the Libra or Taurus being ruled by Venus, the physical appearance, or with Scorpio, it's more on a deeper level, that hidden magnetism, I don't know what else to call it, that is that seductress that Lilith represents, but at the lower levels, it's kind of trying to trap people in its spell, you know, instead of asserting itself. Because really, it almost made me think of the Devil card in the Tarot where they're, and that was more, I think, in Taurus than anything else, but this idea of the lust and these are lower expressions. At the higher expression, this is all about um, being your own person. And in the first house, this is really heightened. For men, this can manifest as the need for expressing the feminine side, their softer side, and even I would say too around the intuitive. I have made this comment over and over again that men are very underrepresented in yoga classes and everything that I go to. It's like a lot of women, very few men. And men need to embrace their intuitive side because they have, this, we talk about the gender constructs. This is all energetic. So the divine feminine, the divine masculine have nothing to do with genitalia. It's all about energy. And I wonder if the younger men, the men of maybe the millennial men, men of Generation Z, if they are actually, I feel like they are being suppressed. I mean, they are being encouraged to show their feminine energy more than the younger women. The younger women are displaying toxic masculinity sometimes, but they can get away with it because they're women. I know that sounds like a controversial statement. It is a controversial statement, and I don't even know if I'm 100% correct in this. This is, I think, a lot of women under the age of 35 or even 40, that they have to embrace the softer side of themselves. And I'm talking about, if a woman has Black Moon Lilith in the first house, and she is a younger woman, she may have been conditioned to be overly aggressive in terms of asserting herself and feeling like if she is being more docile, I don't even know what word to use, that she's a sellout, that she's, weak. And so the imbalances are not necessarily connected to gender. You are completely entitled to comment on what I just said. And, if you disagree with it, that's absolutely fine, because I don't even know if I'm correct about that. It's just something that feels like it's going on for me. I feel like that younger men are expressing more of the sensitivity and the feminine energy than the younger women are their age, their counterparts, their female counterparts. And so older people, it's going to be more down the traditional lines of male and female. It'd be interesting to know how this would affect people who are gay, because, that idea of shaming people, feeling like that who you are is not acceptable, can run the gamut, and one of it is the way you express sensitivity, or the opposite of that. And so you have a man, or even a man who isn't gay, but he's very intuitive. All of these things, if it doesn't fit in a nice, neat little pattern, little box, then other people may reject it. And when you're younger, you may feel this sense of like not being able to stick up for yourself. But hopefully, as you get older, you can gain that kind of sense of personal power, because that's ultimately what this is all about. Now, one last thing I want to mention is that they were talking about even the physical appearance, because, of course, the first house is the body, and they mentioned birthmarks, moles, on the head, on the face, and this is because Aries, or the first house, Aries is the ruler of the first house. I'm assuming that's what this is about, is that it can represent the head. So maybe there's like something that is distinctive about that, because people who have this placement will definitely make an impression on others. Now, other people may react in ways that are not necessarily all that positive, or they don't have like the typical reaction, but your presence will be felt when you enter a room. So if the person has the like I said, rising sign of Scorpio, Libra, Taurus, and this, to me, this can be male or female, because there are some men who are I was going to say seductress, because that's how I see Lilith, as that feminine energy. But you could see that, you could say the male counterpart to that, the seducer, the person who may be physically attractive or physically magnetic. So typically, you think of the word attractive, it's about attracting. It's not necessarily that the person has to be a model, resemble a model. They could just be that certain magnetism, or even animal magnetism. And they have that ability to seduce. But that might be something that is almost like a defense mechanism, and you don't want to go there. Unless you've been somebody who's very repressed and shamed for sexuality, then you might, and this might be somebody who's raised in a very religious, conservative environment that is very shame-based when it comes to sex, and women, especially if it's very controlled, and women have to wear, dresses down to their ankles and things like that. And the woman who's that outlier, who kind of, dares to be more provocative, is going to be kind of the black sheep of the community. And, I'm thinking of, somebody who lives in a small town, for instance. And, even when, that really brings to mind, even when you live in a bigger area, there, and I'm just saying this as it is said, not that I would use that word, but it's like kind of like the town slut or the school slut. I remember in high school, there were girls, there was always like that girl that might have been like Black Moon Lilith, who was this, everybody said, oh yeah, she's sleeping around, blah, blah, blah. And that's not, I grew up in the 80s. That's when I went to high school. So it's not like the 50s, 40s, 30s. But there was still those rumors and that kind of thing. So that could be what the person's image is. That's what I'm trying to get across here, because it's the first house. So I hope that this was adequate enough. Like I said, I might revise it at some future date, but it'll be interesting to explore these these placements in various houses. Thanks for listening. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.